I never imagined that one mistake could unravel everything. A moment of weakness, a secret hidden behind closed doors, and now an innocent child caught in a web of betrayal. My best friend, the man I trusted like a brother, is raising a baby that isn't his because that baby is mine. Before I continue, thank you to all my subscribers. If you love dramatic, shocking stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a new story. Let me dive into my story. I never intended to betray my best friend. My name is Daniel Carter, and I am about to confess the greatest sin of my life. I've known Ryan Mitchell since we were kids. We grew up together, played on the same football team, and even went to the same college. Ryan and I had been inseparable since college, bound by late-night study sessions, shared heartbreaks, and drunken adventures that turned into lifelong memories. We were more than just friends. He's more than my best friend. He's my brother in every way except blood. And then there's Natalie. Natalie, the love of Ryan's life. The woman who should have been untouchable. The woman I betrayed him with. When he introduced me to Natalie, I smiled, shook her hand, and genuinely wished them the best. She was beautiful, of course, long dark hair, eyes that could melt steel, and a quiet confidence that made her stand out. But she was his. Off limits. At least, that's what I told myself. Ryan and Natalie married 2 years after they met. I stood beside him as his best man, watching as he kissed his bride and promised her forever. I remember clapping, forcing a smile, and drowning my unease in champagne. I told myself it was just nerves, just the fear of losing my best friend to marriage. But deep down, something had already begun to shift. It started small. Ryan traveled often for work, leaving Natalie alone in their home. She wasn't the type to complain, but I could see the loneliness in her eyes. Whenever I stopped by, we'd talk about books, about movies, about life. Innocent conversations, or so I thought. One night, she called me. Late. Daniel, she whispered, her voice trembling. I think someone's outside the house. I didn't hesitate. I was in my car in minutes, speeding through the dark streets to get to her. When I arrived, she was standing in the doorway, barefoot, wearing only a long t-shirt. The porch light flickered above us, casting eerie shadows on her face. I heard something, she murmured. I swear I did. I checked around the house, but there was nothing, no footprints, no signs of forced entry. Still, she insisted that she was shaken, so I stayed. And that's when it happened. We were sitting on the couch, the tension in the room thick as smoke. She hugged herself, rubbing her arms like she was cold. I hate being alone, she admitted. Sometimes it feels like I'm invisible. You're not invisible, I told her. Her eyes met mine, searching for something. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was her, maybe it was me. But suddenly, we weren't just sitting there anymore. Her lips brushed against mine, soft and hesitant. I should have pulled away. I should have stopped it right there. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her back. We never spoke about that night. I left before dawn, my heart pounding, my mind racing. But the damage was done. The line had been crossed. And the worst part? I didn't regret it. Not yet. There are moments in life that redefine everything you thought you knew. For me, that moment happened, and then another rainy night. That night shouldn't have never happened again. It was a cold winter evening, and Ryan was away on a business trip. He had asked me to check on Natalie, who was 6 months pregnant at the time. She had been feeling sick, and he didn't want her to be alone. I remember walking into their house, the air filled with the scent of lavender candles. Natalie Lee was curled up on the couch, wearing one of Ryan's old hoodies, her belly swollen with the baby she thought was his. Hey, you didn't have to come, she said with a tired smile. You know Ryan? I shrugged, forcing a chuckle. He'd kill me if I didn't. I sat beside her and we started talking. About the baby, about Ryan, about life. And then she opened up in a way I never expected. He's never here, she whispered, her voice breaking. I know he works hard for us, but sometimes I feel like I'm going through this alone. I should have stopped the conversation there. I should have reassured her, told her everything would be fine. But instead, I told her the truth. I get it, I admitted. Sometimes, I feel like I don't even know my best friend anymore. She looked at me, her blue eyes filled with something unspoken. You're always here, though, she said softly. You always show up. Another moment where the lines blurred, where emotions became something more dangerous. One glass of wine led to another. One shared laugh became a lingering touch. And before I knew it, we were tangled in something neither of us could take back. When it was over, We lay in silence, the weight of what we had done suffocating us. We kept making this mistake, Natalie whispered, tears slipping down her face. I know, I said, feeling the same guilt clawing at my chest. I left that night, swearing it would never happen again. But fate had other plans, because 3 months later, when Ryan stood beside Natalie in the delivery room, holding his newborn son for the first time, I knew the truth. That baby wasn't his. That baby was mine. Ryan held the baby in his arms, his eyes filled with awe, joy, and the kind of love that only a father can have for his child. Except, he wasn't the father. I stood in the hospital room, my stomach in knots as I watched the scene unfold. Natalie lay in the bed, exhausted but glowing, her hand resting on Ryan's arm as he cradled the newborn. He's perfect, Ryan whispered. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding against my ribs. A boy. My son. The weight of it was suffocating, pressing down on me like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I felt like an intruder in this moment, an imposter standing in the shadows of a life that was supposed to belong to someone else. Natalie's eyes flickered to me for just a second, just long enough for me to see the panic behind them. She looked away quickly, turning her attention back to Ryan, forcing a smile. What should we name him? Ryan asked, his voice filled with excitement. Natalie hesitated. We had never talked about names, never even considered what would happen if this moment arrived. Ryan turned to me, grinning. You're my best friend, man. You should help us decide. Help them decide? Help name my own son while pretending I had no part in his existence? The cruelty of it made me sick. How about Mason? I said before I could stop myself. Natalie's breath hitched. She knew. She knew that was the name I had once mentioned in passing, the name I had always imagined if I ever had a son of my own. Ryan's face lit up. Mason. I love it. He turned back to Natalie. What do you think? She forced a smile. Mason is perfect. Perfect. Nothing about this was perfect. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I had convinced myself that I could live with it. That I could shove the truth so deep inside me that it would never see the light of day. Until the night Ryan called me in a panic. Danny, I need you to come over. Now. His voice was different. Tight. Angry. My stomach twisted. When I arrived, Natalie was pale, sitting stiffly on the couch, her hands clenched in her lap. Ryan stood in the middle of the living room, a single piece of paper in his trembling hand. A paternity test. I felt my world tilt beneath me. Tell me this is a mistake, Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't speak. He turned to Natalie. Tell me this is some kind of sick joke. Natalie burst into tears, her whole body shaking. I'm so sorry, she choked out. Ryan's face twisted in agony as he looked between the two of us, realization dawning in his eyes. His best friend. His wife. His son. Or rather, my son. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I say? What words could possibly fix this? Ryan took a step toward me, his fists clenched. How long? His voice was raw, broken. I swallowed hard. That night, the night you were out of town. The words barely left my mouth before his fist crashed into my jaw. I stumbled back, tasting blood, but I didn't fight back. I deserved this. Ryan's whole body shook with rage, betrayal, and something worse, pain. You were my brother, he said, his voice cracking. I trusted you. I let you into my home, into my life, and the whole time you were sleeping with my wife. I didn't mean for it to happen, I said weakly. But it did, he spat. And now, the son I've been raising isn't even mine. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, Ryan turned to Natalie, his voice like ice. I want a divorce. Natalie let out a strangled sob, but Ryan wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at me, and for the first time in my life I saw it. I saw hatred. I never want to see you again, he said. You're dead to me. And just like that, I lost my best friend. But the worst part? I had no idea what would happen to my son. The door slammed so hard behind me that the walls shook. I stood there, dazed, the taste of blood still on my tongue from Ryan's punch. My best friend. Asterisk asterisk my brother in every way except blood. Asterisk asterisk was gone. His words still echoed in my head. You're dead to me. Natalie was sobbing in the living room, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her. I didn't know if I hated her or hated myself more. Mason's cries broke through the air like a knife to my chest. My son. I wanted to run to him, hold him, tell him I would never leave him. But how could I promise that when I had already destroyed the foundation of his world before he even knew it? Would I even get to be his father now? Ryan didn't waste time. By the next morning, I woke up to a text message. Ryan, stay away from my house. From Natalie. From Mason. Ryan, I'll let the lawyers handle the rest. Lawyers. The weight of that hit me like another punch. I barely had time to process it before Natalie called. Her voice frantic. Ryan is trying to get full custody, she choked out. He's telling the court you're not fit to be around Mason. That you, her voice broke, that you're a homewrecker who doesn't deserve to be in his life. My stomach twisted. I knew Ryan. He was powerful, respected. A man everyone trusted. If he wanted to cut me out of Mason's life, he had the influence to make it happen. He's angry, Natalie, I said, rubbing my face. I don't blame him. But you're his father, she whispered. Don't you want to fight for him? Fight for him. I did. God, I did. But how? I had already lost my best friend. Would I lose my son too? The next few weeks were a nightmare. Ryan wasn't just coming after me, he was coming after both of us. He filed for divorce, claiming adultery. He hired the best lawyers money could buy, demanding full custody of Mason on the grounds that Natalie had broken their sacred vows and was unfit to be a mother. And me? He painted me as the villain, a traitor, a man who couldn't be trusted. I'll make sure Mason never calls you Dad. Ryan swore the one time we saw each other in court. You don't deserve him. It was a slow-motion car crash, and I was powerless to stop it. Natalie begged me to stand up for myself. You're his biological father, Daniel. That means something. But did it? In the eyes of the law, I was nothing more than a man who had destroyed his best friend's marriage. And Mason? He was caught in the middle of a war he didn't ask for. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Natalie dropped another bombshell. We need to get married, she blurted out one night. I stared at her. What? Ryan is using the fact that we aren't together against me, she explained, eyes desperate. If we were married, it would show the court that Mason has a stable home with his real father. Marry Natalie? The woman who had helped me destroy everything? The mother of my child? Could I do it? Could I turn this mistake into something real? Or was I just setting myself up for another disaster? The words, we need to get married, hung in the air like smoke, suffocating me. I stared at Natalie, waiting for her to say she was joking. That she didn't actually expect me to marry her after everything we had done. But she wasn't joking. She was desperate. We have no choice, she said, gripping my hands. Ryan's lawyers are ruthless. They're painting me as an unstable, unfit mother. They're using your affair with me as proof. But if we're married, we can show the court that Mason has a real family. A family? I almost laughed. What kind of family started with a betrayal? I ran a hand through my hair. Natalie, marriage isn't. It's not about love, Daniel, she cut me off. It's about keeping Mason. If we don't do this, Ryan will win. I knew she was right. Ryan had power. Influence. He wasn't just fighting us, he was crushing us. And I couldn't let him take my son. So I said the words that would change my life forever. Okay, let's do it. We got married in a courthouse. No flowers. No guests. No vows of love. Just paperwork and a judge who barely looked at us. Natalie forced a smile for the cameras outside. This is a new beginning, she whispered, gripping my arm. But it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like a life sentence. Ryan didn't take it well. He showed up at my doorstep the night after the wedding, fists clenched, eyes burning with hate. You think this changes anything? He spat. You think putting a ring on her finger makes you a father? I didn't answer. Because part of me knew he was right. You'll never be his dad, he growled. I'll fight you until my last breath. And then he walked away, leaving me with a wife I didn't love and a war I wasn't sure I could win. Living with Natalie felt like living with a ghost. We shared a bed but never touched. We spoke, but only about Mason. I could see the guilt in her eyes every time she looked at me. The regret. Sometimes I wondered if she wished she had never met me at all. And sometimes I wondered if I felt the same. Then one night, I caught her crying in the dark. Natalie, I whispered, sitting beside her. What's wrong? She shook her head. I lost everything, Daniel. My marriage. My best friend. My life. So had I. But before I could say it, she looked at me with something new in her eyes. Something dangerous. But I still have you, she murmured. Then she kissed me. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe in the lie. I let myself believe we could be something more. I let myself fall. But I never saw the next betrayal coming. The days following our impromptu wedding were a blur of legal battles and strained silences. Natalie and I presented a united front in court, but behind closed doors, our relationship was a fragile facade. Ryan's legal team was relentless, painting Natalie and me as unfit parents who had betrayed not only him but also the sanctity of family. They argued that our marriage was a sham, a desperate attempt to salvage our reputations and retain custody of Mason. Despite our efforts, the judge granted Ryan temporary custody pending a full evaluation. The day Mason was taken from our home was the day I felt my heart shatter into irreparable pieces. With Mason gone, the thin threads holding Natalie and me together began to fray. Our conversations turned into arguments, our shared spaces became battlegrounds, and the weight of our choices pressed down on us like a suffocating fog. One evening, after another heated exchange, Natalie broke down. "I can't do this anymore, Daniel," she sobbed. "We've lost everything. Our friends, our dignity, our son." I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that we would get through this, but the words felt hollow. I had no idea how to fix the mess we had created. Just as hope seemed lost, an unexpected ally emerged. Lauren, my ex-wife, reached out. "I heard about what's happening," she said softly over the phone. "I'm so sorry, Daniel." Her empathy was a balm to my wounded soul. Despite everything, she offered her support, both emotionally and legally. "You made a mistake," she acknowledged, "but Mason deserves to know his real father." With Lauren's assistance, we gathered evidence of Ryan's attempts to alienate Mason from us. We presented a stronger case, emphasizing Mason's need for both his biological parents in his life. The final court date arrived, tense and nerve-wracking. After hours of deliberation, the judge rendered a decision: joint custody. Mason would split his time between us and Ryan. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start, a chance to rebuild, to be a father to my son. The court's decision to grant joint custody of Mason was a bittersweet victory. While it meant I could be a part of my son's life, it also meant navigating a complex and tense co-parenting arrangement with Ryan. The wounds of betrayal were still fresh, and trust was a distant memory. Our initial meetings to discuss Mason's schedule were strained. Ryan's demeanor was cold, his words clipped. We agreed on a rotating schedule, ensuring Mason spent equal time with both households. However, the underlying tension was palpable, making each exchange feel like walking on a tightrope. Natalie and I attempted to create a nurturing environment for Mason during his time with us. Yet, the cracks in our relationship widened daily. Our marriage, built on a foundation of guilt and obligation, lacked the genuine connection needed to withstand the pressures we faced. Despite the turmoil between the adults, Mason remained a beacon of innocence and joy. His laughter filled our home, temporarily masking the underlying discord. I cherished every moment with him, yet a nagging fear persisted. How long could we maintain this facade before it crumbled? Ryan's resentment towards me showed no signs of abating. During custody exchanges, his hostility was evident, often making passive-aggressive remarks or refusing to acknowledge my presence. It was clear that while the court had mandated joint custody, the emotional rift between us remained vast. One evening, after putting Mason to bed, Natalie approached me with a somber expression. "Daniel, we need to talk," she began, her voice trembling. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever revelation awaited. "I can't do this anymore," she confessed, tears welling in her eyes. "Our marriage, this charade, it's tearing me apart." Her words, though painful, were not entirely unexpected. Our union, forged in the aftermath of betrayal, had been fraught with challenges from the start. "I think it's best if we separate," she continued, her voice breaking. "For Mason's sake and ours." Natalie's decision to separate was a turning point. We agreed to dissolve our marriage amicably, focusing on co-parenting Mason and providing him with the stability he deserved. The process was emotionally taxing, but it also offered a glimmer of hope, for healing, for growth, and for the possibility of rebuilding our fractured lives.